Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Kindly Learn webinar on outdoor play. My name's Tracy and I'm just the host for this webinar. I'll be handing over to Sue in a moment. Thank you very much for joining us today. Do hope that you and your families are all keeping well. It may seem a bit strange we're running a webinar on outdoor play at a time when we're obviously limited by lockdown in the amount of time we can spend outside, or even in doing our jobs in caring for children at the moment. However, we're working on the principle that lockdown will end eventually, and that now is actually a good time to be thinking about how you can plan and manage and organise your resources for outdoor play. So first, I'd like to start by welcoming Sue. Hi, Sue.
Hi, thanks for having us.
So Sue's an early childhood consultant with lots of experience in this area. So it's wonderful to have her with us today.
Thank you, Tracy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for signing up. To hear that there's kind of 120 of you possibly joining today is absolutely amazing. So thank you very much for your time. As Tracy says, obviously we're stuck in the middle of the pandemic at the moment in terms of COVID-19, but hopefully we're all maybe in different kind of states and different states of mind and different states of play. We might be childminders who maybe have access to the back garden maybe still, and you've got maybe children that you are looking after, the key worker children that might be still attending. You might be a nursery that's open in smaller numbers for these key children and vulnerable children, and therefore you've got an outdoor space. You might be a parent maybe in parent mode at the moment because you may be furloughed from work and you're thinking about your children, and I know that people from out of the UK, so specifically the UAE maybe, will be listening to this also. So really thinking about the fact that maybe their international schools and nurseries may actually be closed, and there are children throughout the UK and throughout the world that maybe aren't accessing green spaces and outdoor spaces at the moment due to lockdown. So we're obviously in that kind of middle ground at the moment, as Tracy mentioned, but we're hoping to think about what's going on here so that we can get everybody sorted for when the lockdown ends. So we're just thinking about developing an outdoor play today, and there's a couple of quotes just here that I quite like. One from Margaret Macmillan: "The best classroom and the richest cupboard is roofed only by the sky." I think that's really, really lovely. Just to introduce myself just very quickly, if you are a member of Kindle Learn, you'll have heard my voice a few times maybe and seen maybe the photograph that I use on this slide. Then one of the reasons why I'm doing this webinar today is that I used to be a Girl Guide, and I'm an ex-Queen's Guide. Well, I don't suppose you're ever an ex. I'm a Queen's Guide and an ex-guide leader with a camp permit and training in things like firelighting and whittling, and also so it's a little bit like forest training. I know forest training is something totally on its own and a very bespoke thing, but my background's very, very similar to that. So this is one of the reasons why I'm here. My experience started as a registered childminder in 1998. I was affiliated with the Children's Centre here in Kirklees in West Yorkshire, where I live, and I was Ofsted Outstanding graded twice. They particularly liked my planning, and as I planned to seasons and we were growing things with the children, and they got the access to the back garden and the local country park, and we went pond dipping, etc, etc. So it's really it was part and parcel, I feel, especially of my last outstanding grade, was the access to outdoors. I am a freelance early childhood consultant. I've got links to my Facebook group here and my book that actually got released finally last week. It seems such a long time since I started writing it, but obviously book covers there and the link here to where you could buy it if you wanted to do. You will get a PDF of the slides and hopefully they will click through as well. So objectives are really thinking about the benefits of outdoor play, to explore risk assessment versus risk benefits, including first-hand experiences and how important they are for children. And then we're going to really think about how we can provide learning from all opportunities from the 7 areas of learning and development. So in terms of the people from the UAE that are possibly going to be listening as well, we know that the EYFS is something that's specifically for England, but from my experience in terms of international tutoring and assessing, there's a lot of nurseries, international schools and kindergartens throughout the world embracing play-based learning, and they're particularly impressed by the EYFS. So even though they're not registered and inspected by Ofsted, they are choosing to go and follow the EYFS, which is absolutely super, because we all know, don't we, that the best learning for children in their younger years is through play. So it's absolutely brilliant that more people are coming on board with this as well. So just a quick reminder, I'm not going to read it out because you can see it for yourself, about what EYFS says, and it does talk about this daily outside play experience. I do know this is really, really obviously pandemic rise at the moment, it's a struggle and it's a possible challenge, but in the UK they have given permission for this daily outside experience, and they are thinking about our wellness and well-being and mental health in terms of being outside as well. I know also if you live in your worldwide point of view, that there are lots of struggles and challenges, such as air pollution indicators, extreme weather conditions, etc. But there are ways, and hopefully I'll be able to show you a few soon as we go on, where it can be possible even in extreme weather conditions to share this outside experience. So it's about risk assessment and really thinking about how this can be done maybe. So being outdoors, we need to think about the fact that it's got a lot of positive impact on our sense of well-being. It reduces stress and helps all aspects of children's development. It also offers different opportunities for doing things in different ways and on different scales, and it increases confidence and even vision. It gives children first-hand experiences with weather and seasons and from the natural world. I'm not sure if you've ever done kind of training with me, such as like baby training and things like that, but one of my pet hates is the fact that we can get things like the stuffed toys they kind of got rattles on and scrunches on and all these kind of sensory toys, and they are, for example, a spider or an octopus, but they're actually multicoloured in greens and browns and purples and blues and all hue of different colours, and if you're saying to a child this is a spider, and in fact it's got like 7 or 8 different colours on it and each leg is making a different sound, then you're actually telling them that's what a spider looks like, and obviously it bears no resemblance whatsoever to the characteristics or what actually a real spider looks like. So I'm really passionate about children having this first-hand contact with weather, seasons, natural world, and having these first-hand experiences. They can then pretend afterwards that's something else, but if we're telling them those things, then it's really important that we're telling them firsthand, teach them the right kind of thing. So we need to really think about this, and also the children need to be have the freedom to be able to explore, use their senses, be physically active and exuberant. So most of this has come from the old EYFS cards, which came out in 2008, but we really need to think about this, because being outdoors is also, through different research, it's been found it decreases cholesterol by up to 40%. If you can't be out during the day because of the heat and different weathers, then being out in the morning first thing is actually being found to be really beneficial. Physicality first. If we are able to do some physical activity, then we are more set up and more motivated to learn for the rest of the day. So if you are in worldwide, in terms of where it's really, really hot, like the UAE and Thailand, etc., then it's really important that we consider when that little bit, might only be 15-20 minutes or something, can happen, thinking about the shade, thinking about the risk assessments in terms of air quality and things like that. But don't just rule it out thinking it's too hot. Is there any particular thing that we can do maybe to help? It might be too hot on some days, but actually in other ways sometimes it can still be possible. So just really try and think about how important it is. A sense of well-being, if you can see nature from a window and from an open window, an open door, it's a start. It's not, obviously it doesn't replace being out there and having that first-hand experience, but it's a good start. So there's other things to workarounds that we can maybe think about there as well. Delicate balance then between risk assessment and risk benefits. So we've all clearly got a duty of care to staff and to children. Nobody wants to put children or staff, if it comes to that, in danger, but children do need a delicate age and stage appropriate risk so they continue to learn. idea here obviously isn't that we're doing the wrapping children up in bubble wrap like this and classing them as fragile people. They are fragile, they are vulnerable when they're little, but with the right help and support then we can have this delicate balance of risk assessment and risk benefits. If we think about the kind of seesaw effect that I've tried to emulate on this other picture here, we need to think about the fact that if children don't have access to exercise and outdoor spaces, what would happen? We know in the UK there's massive issues with obesity and mental health issues for young children. So we need to really think about how we can do this. Vitamin D is really important. We get that from the sunshine. There was a case in 2014 in the UK where it was highlighted that things like rickets were making a comeback because children weren't spending enough time outside and getting that vitamin D as well. So there's all sorts of things to weigh into the balance. Obviously, if it's going to be sunny and warm, we need to think about sun cream. We need to think about the application of that. Our parents putting that first application on a morning. That's what I used to say when I was childminding. When a warm, hot day, sunny day, we needed to make sure that children were protected. So as they were getting dressed, the parents put on the first application, and then after lunch, if we went out again, we would top that up and would do a second application for the children as well, just to keep them topped up as well. Lots of things to think about. Fresh air, fresh water. We know that EYFS says fresh water needs to be available, so that's really important, isn't it? But actually getting children to drink it is another thing, isn't it? Because they're used to maybe juice and other things at home. So maybe use a chat function if you can think of any top tips for helping children to drink fresh water. Something that I found as I've got older, because I didn't drink a lot of water myself as a child, is that actually the water bottles, if you're reusing the water bottles, even I used to think, oh, I'll just give it a quick swish and empty that water and put some more water in, not thinking that they needed a special clean because they've obviously got water in there, but actually it can start to taste and smell quite feisty and horrible after a time, can't it, and quite horrible. So obviously they're not going to want to drink it. I personally like quite cold fresh water, but some children obviously will act as well. So we've got a few ideas coming through. Ice pops or ice cubes in the water to make it fun. I think that's really important. Obviously thinking about choking for the younger children as well, but really thinking about that. Making your own ice pops, that would be really lovely. That's a really good idea. Putting the water into their favourite cups. I think that's a huge top tip. We used to, all the children in our house used to bring, to begin with, when they started using like maybe a sippy cup or feeder beaker to begin with, they used to bring the one exactly like there was at home, so that there wasn't any confusion and upset of it not being quite right or not smelling quite right or whatever. And then when they got bigger, they got to choose their own cup, whether that was something from Disney or something from a favourite colour or whatever, but they got to choose and use their own cups. I think that's a really, really good one. Sticker on the outside that they can take off when they, yeah, that's a really, really good idea as well. Frozen fruits, a really, really nice one. Frozen lolly fruits, yeah, that's really, really nice. We have a water dispenser on the fridge. We've got one, and this is where I like the cold water. We've had one for years, but now, unfortunately, I can tell the difference between filtered water and tap water, so I'm a bit of a pain when it comes to training courses and things with a jug of water, because I can tell it's tap water now, and I like the filtered and bottled water. I don't suppose it's a huge thing, but let them pour from the jugs themselves. I found actually when we took the kitchen outside sometimes into the garden, that if you gave them a small jug of water and the little cups maybe that actually came with the play kitchen, they would actually spend more time pouring themselves water and drinking loads because it was from a small cup, and the novelty about actually pouring it all out. Being a good role model, that's a really good one, and unfortunately in my younger years I wasn't, but now I drink lots of water, so I am now. I'm well on board with that one. So thinking about, after just thought, I've tried to get the first kind of three main areas. I know they overlap, so I've not done the overlap, but I'm just trying to think about birth to 11 months to begin with, just thinking about those younger children. I know that throughout the world, sometimes babies don't go into childcare because maybe parents, grandparents, etc., or they might have nannies at home for the first few years, or sometimes the culture is like kind of from 3 or 4 months that they come into nurseries. And obviously from the UK, we may be getting those older babies coming in after maternity leave, so we might not be getting babies into kind of 8, 9, 10 months. But I just thought it's a little bit, it's worth a little bit of time just thinking about these babies, thinking about the outdoor experiences from the start. try and discuss your ethos to parents and explain any anxieties that parents might have. So we sometimes used to let the baby sleep outside, obviously with parental consent, and we used to be there to supervise that as well, and the weather and things. But if you think about the Scandinavian countries, even in extreme minus temperatures, they are obviously children are well wrapped up, but they spend a lot of time outside, including in their prams asleep. I'm not saying that that's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but it's something maybe just to think about. Is it something that you want to take on in terms of your ethos, and is it something that you want to risk assess? And obviously if you feel it's right for you, then it's something to think about. So discuss your ethos, any anxieties with parents. So parents might have all sorts of different anxieties. As children get a little bit older, they might be diagnosed maybe with a bit of asthma or something like that, and they might be really worried about the extreme weathers on asthma and things like that. Thinking about obviously trying to put the parents' fears at rest, maybe thinking about the fact that the children are going to be fully supervised, it's going to be fully risk assessed, you're not ever going to put the child in danger, discuss what kind of periods of time that children might be outside. Then thinking about your outside space. So if you're in a nursery, you might have different outside spaces for different ages, stages of children. And if you're a childminder, you might be kind of balancing the whole range of children. We used to have children from being a few months old up to being kind of 14 and 15 still come in as well. So during the school holidays, it was a huge thing to take on board, to think about how we could meet all these learning needs. So from birth to 11 months, possibly, these are just some examples, I'm not saying that these are the only examples. Soft surfaces for pre-mobile and crawling babies. So different surfaces to think about. Sometimes it might be a blanket that you put down on a grass or a softer surface. Some people use those kind of foam interlocking pieces. I don't know if you know what I mean or not, but you can get them like a huge jigsaw puzzle almost, or they might have numbers or letters on or things like that. So some people use those, so that's a little bit softer underfoot as well, or under knee and what have you. But thinking about that as well. So somebody asking about babies starting in September. It depends how young the baby is, I think. I think it's really important to think about tummy time. I do have a baby's course. Maybe that's something that I can think about in the future, putting on maybe a little bit of something about babies' needs. But yes, really important to think about outside and inside play experiences for babies, tummy time, crawling time, getting the right physicality, and obviously the attachment thing sorted out as well. We need to think about shade. The weather here at the moment is not as nice as it has been the last couple of weeks, but for April in the UK, actually here where I am, it's been quite warm the last couple of weeks, so shade would be really, really important, whether that's shade from trees or whether it's shade for some kind of veranda or overhang that you can pull out, maybe if you've got one of those shade things you can pull out there as well. Promoting characteristic effective learning from the very, very start. It's really important that we start to think about how we can motivate children and babies and see if we can get them those characteristic effective learning, so they're active learners from the very get-go. Tummy time's hugely important. If you've listened to me talk about physical development, it's really, really important, tummy time and crawling time. We need to think about rich sensory stimulus, so that when babies turn their heads, they can respond to various sights, smells and noises, and they can reach out to things that catch their attention. Obviously things need risk assessing. We need to make sure there's no poisonous berries about and all sorts of different things, but maybe just think about how we can facilitate those prime areas of learning for these younger children outside as well as inside as well. People are saying they find it hard out. It is harder outside in winter with babies, especially pre-mobile babies. We did have some crawling suits, which the children absolutely loved. Once at the children's centre, one of my little babies toddled. It is just about walking, toddled out into the. It wasn't winter actually; it was summer, but it was raining, and he really loved that as well. Yeah, backpack for walkers. You can go for walks with backpacks on. Obviously, children can go in double buggies and buggies and things like that as well. But it is more of a challenge in winter. I do grant you that, especially when it's wet. But thinking about maybe if you have got some kind of shelter, some kind of veranda that you can, or what do you call canopies that you can pull out maybe. So maybe under there you could maybe put a piece of carpet down or some mat or something so that it's not wet, so that they can spend a little bit of time outside. Outside onesies for cold and wet weather, that's a really nice idea as well. Yeah, and if you're going on the school runs like the childminders, then you know that's all rich outdoor experiences, isn't it, for babies as well? So that's all really, really good. 8 to 20 months. Obviously, they're becoming more mobile. They're exploring the world around them and first-hand experiences. They are emerging. The language is emerging. We need to think about the first-hand experiences that I said before, and the outdoors obviously brings a whole hue of colours and other very distinctive features of the natural world, including weather. So I've got a couple of photographs here. One is from a Thai international school, where obviously the weather in April, May, June gets very, very hot in their hot season, but the way that they have set up their outdoor space, we're thinking about the shade and thinking about access to outdoors amazing, and there's some more photographs coming up soon that hopefully will inspire you if you're listening from a hot country to think about what's going on. The culture is huge, isn't it? We need to really think about any cultural expectations that parents might have in terms of body modesty, etc. We also need to think about, and I didn't think about it until actually caring for children from an African Caribbean kind of background, that their parents were saying do not play in the sand. And the child wouldn't even go and explore the sand in any way, shape or form, or those two children actually. But when we unpicked it, getting the sand out of that kind of hairstyle, especially if you're braiding it, etc., and the washing regime is quite an intense one, and it takes lots of time. So the parents were just saying, don't go near the sand. But actually, when we put some bandanas near the sand, so they could put those on first, and that was a really happy medium between the two things as well. And this picture is actually my now 15-year-old with his little friend when we used to childmind them, and they had gone round with the water with little brushes, mark making on the patio, and then they wanted to completely do the step. But a couple of days before that, they'd looked under the mat and found a load of little wood lice and different things, so they were actually wanting to look under there to see about the creatures as well. So that was quite a cute photograph and a little bit of background to what was going on there. But just thinking about when they're becoming more mobile, it's important for them to be able to explore and think about different surfaces and things, and just thinking about those first-hand experiences as well. The children, I'm just thinking of the last caption that's just come up, last message has come up. Our children spent lots of time with just kind of the paintbrushes that you perhaps paint your skating board with at home, and water in a bucket, and they did so much mark making, and it was absolutely, it's something that they never got fed up with, even though obviously after a while in the sunshine they'd dry out, but they absolutely loved it. 16 to 26 months old, so when thinking mobility, it brings curiosity. Obviously, again, risk assessment is hugely important. Children will enjoy transporting, mixing media maybe. Can they mix the sand and water if you're allowing them things like chalks and paints outside and things like that? Can they play with soil, some kind of mud kitchen maybe, or an area if they can't obviously dig up the garden, just thinking about the soil maybe in a tyre or a planter or something that they could maybe play with. Water the plants maybe. They love to transport at this age, so thinking about those maybe little tight kind of cars, you know, with the boots on the back. We used to find all sorts in those little boats in our little tight cars. We need to think about how they can transport in bags, in trucks, in wheelbarrows, in dolls prams, in all sorts of things, because they absolutely love those things. Top tips just come through on the chat. Pound shops are great for outdoor resources. You can absolutely, they're absolutely brilliant, aren't they? Like a little Aladdin's cave full of things. They will like wheeled toys and other opportunities to test and try out the new physical skills as well. So they might be learning to ride a tricycle or something like that as well. So they're going to absolutely love the chances to be able to do all these things as well at this age. Sensory. So we know that children are sensory learners. They are sensory for a long time, but specifically birth to 3s are very, very sensory. So thinking about your outside areas, what can we do to make them sensory? Think about obviously the 5 senses. I know there are 7 or 8 if you look into it a little bit more, but let's think about the first 5 senses. The smell. So have you got flowers and herbs? So things like lavender, mint, etc. You can maybe grow them, like I've said before. I think I've already mentioned it, but maybe in a car tyre on a surface, and then fill it up with compost, and you can grow planters or wellies. Or we planted potatoes, which I think we've got a photograph coming up soon. Quite a few years ago, but they were just in quite thick bags, like black bags, to be able to grow, a little bit like the concept of growing tomatoes in the grow bags. So thinking about flowers and herbs, and obviously they attract the insects and things for children to look at as well, and so there's lots of learning there as well. Sense of taste, can you grow vegetables and fruit? So we're not just thinking about the younger children now, I'm just thinking about, you know, all the children, but obviously linked in. So just thinking about whatever your outdoor space looks like and whatever age range it's set for, try and think about how sensory it is. Somebody's just saying about herbs in tins and upcycled drawers, curry plants, mint. They are very, very good growers. I can even grow those, and that's not saying a great, well, I'm not very good. My husband's gardener, I'm not. But things like sunflowers, curry, peas, potatoes, really, they're really, really easy to grow. People are saying they've been growing herbs and vegetables and they love looking after them. That's really, really good. So thinking about looking after them, watering cans. If you think about maybe a pint of milk, the smallest thing, with the lid. So they've got obviously a little handle and they've got the lid, and if you can punch some holes in the lid, they can obviously make it into a little watering can, and it's a lot easier for little hands to be able to use those rather than a traditional watering can where the actual water might come out of the top because they're pouring it too quickly maybe. So thinking about the things to say, the sounds, wind chimes, you can make your own wind chimes and hang them in a tree. People sometimes hang pots and pans off fences, old ones obviously, so you can think about maybe with spoons and things like that as well. So there's all sorts of things in terms of music as well. Allotment area at the bottom of the garden, that's absolutely brilliant. If you've got that, that's an absolute godsend, isn't it? That's really loads and loads of opportunities there. Spray bottles that picked up from B&Q, those are really good as well because they're building muscles up in hands for writing skills as they're squeezing, and it takes a lot of squeezing and spraying to be able to water them, so they can't really overwater the plants unless they're stood there for absolutely hours doing that. So if you've got lots of children, they can all have a turn without potentially drowning your plants as well. Windsocks are easy to make, that's really lovely. And thinking about maybe some ribbons in trees and things like that, so babies, if they are either on their tummies or backs, they can obviously look up and they can see the shade from the trees, but also see and hear the wind chimes in the ribbons and things as well. So that's all really, really lovely as well. Pegs and baskets at their level, that's really good. It's again for squeezing, that's really nice. Bunting is great in your garden, brilliant, some absolutely brilliant ones coming through. That's really, really great. And then thinking about obviously sense of touch as well. So really when you're thinking about planning your outdoor areas, just think about the senses and what the kind of things that we can learn and do and the kind of experiences that could be there for children as well. 22 to 36 months, exploring lots more now. They might love to dig, to water plants, sweep leaves, probably like to collect daisies and leaves and twigs and conkers and other seasonal treasures. So we've started with winter here, even though we're not in winter, but obviously forward planning, start to think about what might be going on. Who doesn't love splashing in muddy puddles, especially if you're Peppa Pig fanatics, so really thinking about that as well. Thinking if you can extend that, if you've got a puddle, or you could obviously make a puddle in your garden, or this is on the walk to school actually. Children love doing this, but you could play follow the leader, so children can follow instructions, which is obviously really good for listening and attention. Children will love positive, it's adult interaction, and they'll giggle and giggle as you splash and jump and twist and twirl, because usually the sillier you are, the more hilarious they find it. Hold hands and simply jump in shower puddles together. Jumping is obviously a skill in itself, being able to leave the ground and splash, and it's obviously some children might need your help to kind of get to those skills as well. Thinking about the communication and language, it's a puddle, it's wet, it's formed by the rain. You can think of the things they're splashing, there might be bubbles in there, you might want to add bubbles in there, you might want to add paint in there, etc, etc. So there's endless possibilities by the kind of just a natural little puddle there that you might be able to find somewhere. Chalk on pavements, washing up liquid in puddles, that's a really nice one as well. Hula hoops with lots of ribbons, that's really nice as well. Really good for gross motor, isn't it? And thinking about crossing the midline and all those physical skills as well. Brilliant, some absolutely fantastic ideas coming through. Cable reels and planks, that's good. I think we've got that coming up in a couple of minutes on one of the photographs, which is really good. So that will visually people be able to see what you're talking about there as well. Cable reels, you can pick them up quite quick, sometimes upcycling places. There was one local to me which possibly isn't useful to you, but they were giving them away a couple of months ago. So there's all sorts of things. B&Q used to have, and I don't know if they're still doing it, obviously during the pandemic and things, but they used to have like an upcycling thing as well, so you could sometimes go and buy some really cheap bargain things that they were selling off, which was really good for making things like bug hotels and maybe wormeries and things like that as well. So lots of different things there potentially, and again it's that first-hand experience. How many people don't know things about conker trees and acorns and picking blackberries? I mean, obviously blackberries are not seasonal at the moment, they're kind of July, August time out there, but making jam or making crumbles and fruit pies and things are really, really useful. Lots of things coming through. You can get old cable drums from electronic wholesalers. If you're wanting tyres and things, old tyres, then often quick fix centres or garages, any kind of garages that do servicing, they've usually got to pay for somebody to responsibly take away the tyres and sort them out. So they'll probably be quite thankful if you're taking a few off the hands, if that's what you'd like to do. And I've seen loads of Facebook things where people can paint them and they make them into all sorts of things like caterpillars and butterflies and all sorts of different things as well. Yeah, absolutely loads and loads of lovely things coming through, which is really good, because I was going to ask you to share your ideas and you've been really good in doing that, which it's really fantastic. So coming through now, and if you want to join in, if you've not already joined in, thinking about things like that. Somebody's saying top tip, drill holes in the bottom of the tyres for drainage of water. That's a really good top tip. And also I've seen some settings, I've managed to get a plastic washing up bowl that sits in the hole as well. So then obviously you can put things in like sand and water and dinosaurs and all sorts of things in really. Somebody's saying about outstanding grades by growing peas, and we looked, yeah, podded, that's really good, yeah. So she, the offset inspector will love that. Mine loves the growing potatoes and the fact we've been pond dipping and things like that. So yeah, you tend to get thinking about the culture capital nowadays as well, and it's huge, isn't it? So I've got some photographs coming up, and obviously I'm going to keep trying to keep an eye on chat, because you've got loads of things coming through, which is absolutely brilliant. Tough tray outside. Tough trays can be really expensive if you buy them from early years places, you know, resource places. But somebody was saying about the electrical resources and things like that. If you go to a builder's merchant, it's something that typically the builder would maybe mix cement in, and it's actually loads cheaper. So maybe just thinking about, if you want to buy a tough spot, just really thinking about how you can resource that, and obviously not spending too much on one. So these are lots of different photographs from different places. This is the school that I spoke about in Thailand. So I've put the photo credits down here because it's an award-winning international school. So for people who were dialing in from the UAE or from the warmer places, what I'm saying, obviously, that there's a lot of hot months where potentially it's too hot. This school has been built specifically to think about the shade and think about, so they've got trees that have obviously got the natural shade, and they've also got the walkways around here that I've got on actually shelter, that own overhang shelter, because obviously there's the monsoon season to think about as well, so it's not only the sunshine but the rain as well, but they managed to be able to offer outdoor play every day. So thinking about these kind of things, so somebody was saying about crates and planks and tires and things, so obviously the physical side of things like that, and maybe the older children, I don't know if they were in this particular instance, but maybe they could be sharing these ideas and being creative and critical thinking in terms of what they're doing there and actually building an assault course as well. Woodland Trust has got loads of lovely stuff. I'm really thinking I'm seeing lots of things coming through whilst I'm talking as well. Loose parts, sticks, stones, etc. Yeah, they're really, really good. And upcycle, if you've got some kind of upcycling places, there's lots of things that are available, like guttering and things that you can pick up for fairly cheap when people have obviously bought too much or offcuts and things like that. So again, there's obviously in the shade here, even despite the hot weather, there's lots of physical challenges going on there. Another physical challenges of actually fixed play equipment maybe. The simple pleasures of pouring water, and the children really, really love that. It's just sometimes the simpler the things, the better, isn't it, sometimes. The tree slices on the floor that I've just looked at and somebody just popped in chat are really lovely, and if you can get somebody, if you know somebody that chops trees down for a living or whatever, you can sometimes get things that are given away. I went to a nursery once in Scotland, and somebody had actually lovingly done all sorts of things with all these off bits, but actually they drilled some holes kind of maybe halfway, 3/4 the way through them, just the right size for the chubby pencils, so that actually inside and outside the children, there were holes in these tree offcuts for the pencils to go in, which I thought was a really super idea. And children had their tiny versions of them with their names on, so they could self-register and things like that as well. So there's absolutely loads of things. So just to carry on, because we're wrapping through and the time is going really, really quickly. Expressive arts, we've already talked about chalking and painting and water play and things like that, but really important to think about how we can maybe think about the horizontal surfaces and vertical surfaces for mark making inside and outside, because they're different skills and they're really super important skills to develop as well. Just sometimes people don't like balancing and things like that, because for some children they've not yet learnt that sense of balance. So this is maybe something that you could start with on a chalk line, on a piece of paper, jumping about on pieces of paper or shapes and things like that, balancing on things like that before maybe you feel that even though they're maybe only a couple of inches off the ground, that you want to think about their planks and things. It's just maybe to think, if outdoor play is new to you, thinking about the risk assessment and children's building children's skills up, so that we're not maybe having accidents. There will be odd tumbles, it's part and parcel of growing up, isn't it? But obviously about minimising those as well. So we've got perspex, clear perspex attached to fence for mark making with chalks and paints. That's really good. Scrap stores, that's really good. Yep. So we've got a couple near us, and they are really, really useful. I saw something in a nursery where they'd actually cable ties, the thin kind of plastic things that kind of click into place. They'd cable tied a hula hoop to a fence, almost like a basketball net, but they've got one that was vertical and one horizontal, so children were throwing bean bags into them as like a target practice. That was a really useful one as well to think about. Another outdoor space here, again from the same school, Kensington School. This is their musical area, and they have lots of bought things, but they've also got lots of things that were made as well. So they've got the pans and things as well, and obviously they've got the music out here as well. So lots of lovely, lovely things. And obviously musical instruments can be quite expensive, but you can make your own shakers and drums and things really, really easily as well. Shadow painting, yeah. If you want to join my Facebook group, and I mentioned it earlier, but we've got all sorts of things that we've been sharing on there, including shadows. So even like dinosaurs and things like that. If you get the shadows, obviously they can look really, really big, can't they, and really, really small and things like that. So that's a really useful thing. Or you can paint around your own shadows. And obviously, depending on where the sun is, you either look really, really short or really, really long. And you could explore the shadows with children, and why this morning did you look so short, but at lunchtime you look so long? Why is your shadow grown and changed? Or why was it at the front earlier, but now it's at the back of you? And all those kind of things, and extend the learning. Book area, so really I'm just trying to think about all the 7 areas of learning here with these photographs, really thinking about how we can encourage all the areas of learning. Decking can be really cheap. The wooden pallets to plant in, they're really, really useful as well. Obviously transient art can be done really, really quickly. Fairy gardens, so that's this again, using these lovely upcycled milk containers. Thinking about healthy eating, snacks and things, that's just a little one of my little one when he was little, having a picnic. Obviously we can't go out for picnics at the moment, but you could maybe have one in the garden maybe. Growing potatoes. Lots of things, these are all handmade things, and I've seen them where they've used the milk cartons again, cut off, and pipes and things like that. The photograph from the fairy garden came from this bottom link here. It's not actually a link, it was just, I wanted to just give them photo credit for that because it's on my Facebook feed. But there's lots of different things you can have a look, maybe Pinterest and things like that, they're really useful out there for being able to do things like that. So just thinking about the role of the adult, we need to risk assess but also provide challenge. We need to think about, when you're part of your risk assessment, if there's a slight element of medium or low danger, what's the also the element, what is the risk of children not being able to do that? So does that outweigh, does that help you to decide on things like danger and risk assessing appropriately? You need to be a positive, enthusiastic learning partner. If you work in a nursery, it might be that somebody is more enthusiastic about being outside than you are. You obviously need to be supportive of children. You need to think about playful teaching interactions, offer risk and challenge as appropriate, and model new words and concepts at all times as well. Just a few examples of provision that I'm going to whiz through because most of you have been given these examples already. Planters, so we've talked about wellies and grow bags and things like that, haven't we, and pallets. Camera to record the progress of interesting things. Watering cans and other child-sized tools. Magnifying glasses to have a look for bugs and slugs and things like that. Natural materials such as stones and shells and compost, etc. Play sand, moulds, sieves, buckets, etc. Brushes, tape, measures, pens, clipboards, water play, plastic tubing, jugs, buckets, brushes, etc. Mud kitchen maybe, chalks, hula hoops, balls and bean bags and parachute games, etc. Role play can be done outside as well, and these are just examples of what you could do. But thinking about role play, setting up role play areas maybe outside and inside. Remembering about that first-hand experience first. They're not going to know what to do in a garden centre if not been to one, so maybe you could organise some kind of little trip out maybe to one of those first. And then top tips for increasing outdoor experiences. And again, I'll leave you to have a look at the PDF because time's just marched away with us, hasn't it? But lots of different ideas, and they're not the only ideas, they're just some ideas. So really thinking about the different ages and stages of development of children. Bird feeders, really good. I think we've just missed it back in February or March, but there was a kind of the week, wasn't there, where you could actually go to record the birds in your garden and then submit them to kind of the Birdwatch Week. And then I like to think about reflection at all times at the end of all training. Ofsted are always talking about your intent and your implementation and the impact. So record your CPD somewhere on some kind of in diary or maybe on a list. Tracy's spoken about the fact that you're going to get a certificate, but maybe I always think about on the back of your certificate or on a post note on your certificate, just thinking about what did you intend to learn by applying to be on the webinar? How are you going to implement it? And how you're going to record the impact. Remember then the Ofsted questions, what is it like to be a child here? So what is the impact going to be of all these things that I shared and you've shared together, because they've been absolutely wonderful with all this chat, it's been brilliant. So I always think about 3 things, something that you've learned or will do differently as a result of the training. You don't have to share it with us now, but obviously thinking about how you're going to record the impact and reflect upon the training. Thank you so much for all your wonderful things. I am really, really sorry that I've not been able to read them out because there's been an absolute boatload of lovely, lovely suggestions.
Great, thanks, Sue. Thank you again for everybody joining us today. We'll hopefully see you again next week. Thank you again, Sue. Take care. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.